Hi, my name's David and I want to teach you how to play Ancient Empires or Dave's board game, which incidentally is not trash. Okay? Quick overview, Ancient Empires is a game for 2 to 4 players. It combines worker placement and resource management elements with combat military elements as well as victory points as an option. Okay? I'm going to teach you how to play Ancient Empires today in 9 easy steps. So bear with me, let's start with step number 1, object of the game. Okay? How do you win the game? There are 3, potentially 4 ways to win the game. Okay? If you do any of these first 3 things, the game ends immediately. Okay? Number 1, conquer. Be aggressive, defeat other players, and be the last player standing. Second way to win is called Empire. Okay? Be the first player to build 3 cities. Again, game instantly ends, you are the winner. And the third way is called El Dorado. Okay? End your turn with 10 gold. Again, you win the game immediately. The fourth way, which is optional, is by playing a skirmish match. Okay? Basically in a skirmish match, all players before the game starts agree on a set number of turns. This is called the turn limit. So let's say you agree on 13 turns. Okay? If at the end of 13 turns no one has won through conquering Empire or El Dorado, those first 2 ways of winning, if nobody has done that, then at the end of that 13th turn, everybody adds up their score, which I'll explain at the end of the video, and whoever has the highest score wins. Okay, so those are the 3 or 4 ways to win in Ancient Empires. Okay, step number 2, let's look at the setup of the game. For the setup of this game, you're going to start with a handful of hexagonal tiles. If you're playing with 2 players, you're going to use 30 tiles. If you're playing with 3 or 4 players, you're going to use 37 tiles. Okay? For now, we're just going to demo as if we're playing a 2-player game. So you take your 30 tiles and shuffle them all up, okay, and then lay them out on the table. Let's go over these resources first. So this tile is a field tile. That's going to give you wheat or food. Okay. Next tile, this is called a forest tile. That's going to give you wood. This is a mountains tile that's going to give you stone. This is a gold deposit. Okay, gold deposit has the chance to give you gold. We'll talk about that more later. And then the 5th tile and last tile is the desert tile. There's nothing on this tile for you to get. No resources in the desert tile. Okay, so first thing you're gonna do is shuffle all your tiles and then you'll lay them out. One important note here is that all tiles are going to be placed face down. You will flip them over as units enter face down tiles. You'll flip them over to reveal what resource type is on the other side. Alright, so setup is done and we're ready for step 3, who goes first. Okay, everybody picks a color. There's blue, there's red, there's yellow, and there's white. So 4 colors you can choose from. Okay, then we need to figure out who goes first. So everybody rolls a die. Okay? Whoever gets the higher number gets to decide whether they'd like to go first or whether they would not like to go first. Okay? There's a couple reasons why you might not want to go first, and I'll explain that right now. It's called gradual worker implementation. So this is just a way to try to make the game more fair so the person that goes first doesn't have a huge advantage. Okay? Gradual worker placement means once you place your city, okay, you get to pick 3 places to put a worker, okay, which are adjacent to your home city is what that's called. So, for example, now I won't flip them over right now, but let's say I had something that looked like this, okay? If you go first in a 2-player game, okay, you can only gain resources from 2 of your workers, and you can only move those 2 workers on your first turn, while the second player gets to have a regular turn. They get to move all 3 workers and gain 3 resources. In a 3-player game, the first player would only get to gain a resource from 1 worker and move 1 worker. Second player gets to gain resources from 2 workers and move 2 workers, while the third player takes a regular turn with 3 resources and moving all 3 workers. In a 4-player game, this is where things get a little complex. So exactly as I described, first player gets a resource, moves a worker. Second player gains 2 resources, gains 2 workers. Third player gains 3 resources and moves all 3 workers, while the 4th player gets to have a regular turn, but also gets a chance to have another turn on top of that. And then you would go back to player 1, who would start their second turn. Okay, but for right now, we're not going to worry about that too much. We're going to play as if it's a 2-player game. Now we're ready for step 4. We're talking about city and worker placement. So when you place your home city, okay, that's what your first city is called. In a 2-player game and a 3-player game, you need to stay within this outside border. So you may not place your home city anywhere on these tiles on the outer rim. Okay, that applies to the 3-player game as well. In a 4-player game, you actually need to stay on the border. You need to place your home city on the border. But again, we're playing a 2-player game. So I would highly recommend putting your home city somewhere on that second tile range inside of the border. So let's say I decided to put my home city here. Okay, we're gonna flip that over and figure out what's underneath my home city. Now I'll say this now because it's convenient. The tile on which your city sits, home city or any other city, does not produce resources. That's very, very important. So if at some point you take your villagers and retreat them inside your city to defend it, they are not gaining resources. All right, so keep that in mind as we move on. Again, as a tip, I would recommend putting your home cities far away from any other player. You may not place your cities, any cities, within 2 tiles of another player's city. So all of this area is protected by that blue city. So red city cannot place anything around here. Your workers need to be somewhere adjacent to the home city on the tile touching the home city. So I find that it's nice to just kind of get those 3 that are in between you and the other player. Okay, it's nice to flip those over. And in the beginning of the game, it's really important to start exploring, right? Flipping tiles over so you know what's around you. And then the other thing before we move on to how a turn works is every player gets 4 food. All right, for buildings and units, step 5, we're gonna go straight from our quick start guide. A tile upgrade building basically acts as if there's a villager on that tile. Now you have to make sure for each tile upgrade it is placed on the appropriate tile type. Okay, so farm goes on a field and it costs this much. It's going to give you 1 food per turn. Lumber mill goes on the forest, gives you 1 wood per turn. Stonemason goes on a mountain, gives you 1 stone per turn. And a mine goes on a gold deposit and gives you 1 gold number per turn. We're going to talk about that gold number very soon. Other buildings you can build, okay? For these other buildings, they can go on any resource or tile type. So these, for example, the cattle ranch doesn't have to go on a field, it can go anywhere, okay? With your buildings, all of your buildings besides another city, okay? But all these other buildings need to be placed within 2 tiles of your city, and they can't be placed within 2 tiles of another player's city. So the cattle ranch, okay? A little more expensive, costs some gold, which is hard to get, right? But it's going to give you +1 food per villagers in adjacent tiles, okay? So let's imagine for a second that my home city here, let's imagine that was a cattle ranch instead, okay? If I had a cattle ranch here, right, that would give me 1, 2, 3 food per turn. Not to mention that that worker here is going to give me another food. So if I were set up like this, that would give me 4 food per turn. But again, that cattle ranch gives you 1 food per adjacent worker. The silo, okay, an important component of this game that I haven't talked about yet is that there is a food maximum, okay, maximum capacity. You can never have more than 5 food at any time unless you build a silo, okay? A silo gets rid of that max capacity, which is really convenient. Barracks, 2 wood, 3 stone, 1 gold, allows you to create military units. We're gonna get to our units in just a second, but all of these require the barracks to be built. So you wanna get those barracks out if you wanna start being offensive and aggressive. A wall acts as 1 villager when defending a city. Basically, that just gives you +1 defense for your city, home city or otherwise, all right? And then if you want to, you can also build another city, okay? Benefits of a city: expands the range of one's territory. Remember, all your buildings have to be placed within 2 tiles of your city, so building another city is a really nice way to kind of expand your territory. Now, with cities, they can go anywhere on the board as long as they're not within 2 tiles of an opponent's city. So let's look at what we have right now. I can place my second city anywhere on this map as long as it's not within 2 tiles of an opponent's city. So for example, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I could place my second city there. Other advantages: provides food for 3 units per turn, okay? Your city, every single city is providing +3 food per turn. Don't forget, 3 cities leads to a victory. So if you can manage to get to that 3rd city, you win the game. Units up here, okay? You can build a villager. Villagers are great because they get you resources, which is very important, okay? They can also provide defense in combat. Soldier, you need the barracks, of course, can attack other military units, kill villagers, and capture and raise buildings. That's the same for all these units, okay? The archer does all the same things, but is gonna give you +1 score on offense and +2 score on defense. Finally, the cavalry. This is the only unit that gets to move 2 tiles per turn because it's cavalry, okay? They get +2 score on offense, no score on defense. Again, all these military units can attack other military units, they can kill villagers, and they can capture opponent buildings and raise them as well, okay? And that's how you're gonna be attacking cities to plunder them if that's what you choose to do. You can only build 1 building per turn, okay? Also, you can only have 1 building on any tile, except for the wall. The wall goes inside of your city, so that's okay, but for everything else, you can only have 1 building per tile, and you can only build 1 per turn. Units, you can build as many units as you would like on your turn, as much as you can afford, and you can only ever have 3 villagers on 1 tile. Okay, soldiers, archers, cavalry, don't worry about those, but the villager, up to 3 on 1 tile. Step 6 now, how does a turn work? Okay, the first thing you want to do on your turn is worry about your resources, starting with food. The this is called the food acquisition stage. So you're going to want this population tracker board. You want to keep this up to date all the time. So right now, blue team's got their home city and they've got 3 villagers. So population, of course, is 3, and I've got 1 city. So I'm going to stay on this row right here. So 3 population, 1 city. That means 0. Okay, remember that each city provides 3 food, right? And my population is 3. So I don't have a food surplus, and I'm not consuming food either. Okay, I'm staying balanced at 0, which is fantastic. Okay, now if you look at the map, okay, I'm actually lucky because I have 1 worker on food, on wheat, right? So that's going to earn me 1 wheat. So for the food resource, I get 1 food. I like to go in order from food, then wood, then stone, then gold. All right, so I've got my 1 food from the field tile. I'm going to get 1 wood from the forest tile, and I'm going to get 1 stone from the mountain tile. Now, I'm going to look for one of these. That is a gold deposit. Now, I told you earlier that there's an element of chance when it comes to gold. When you have a worker on a gold deposit, okay, that gives you something that's called a gold number. Okay, I've got 1 gold number, and that's the same whether you have a villager or whether you have a mine. So let's say I build a mine, now I would have a gold number of 2. Okay, it doesn't matter how many different tiles there are. Oh, I don't know, let's say this was a gold deposit as well. Let's put a mine and a villager. Okay, now I've got a gold number of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what that means is for every turn when you're doing your resource acquisition phase, right, you're gonna roll a die to tell you how much gold you're gonna get. So for right now, with a gold number of 4, if I roll anything from 1 to 4, I'm going to get a gold, and the number that comes up on the die is how much gold I get. If I roll 1, that means I get 1 gold. If I roll 2, that means I get 2 gold. 3, I get 3 gold. 4, I get 4 gold. 5 or 6, I get nothing because my gold number doesn't cover that. All right, let's say I just have 1 worker on a gold deposit, okay? Hopefully you're following me. If I rolled a 1, I would get 1 gold. Any other number, I get no gold, okay? One important caveat with that, your maximum gold number is 5, okay? So don't bother placing 6 villagers on a gold deposit. That doesn't make any sense because, again, the max is 5. You can trade resources, okay, and that's something that's going to be printed on your quick start guide, okay? You can trade 3 wood for 1 stone. You can trade 3 stone for 1 wood. So 3 to 1, either of those 2 ways. You cannot trade food in for any resource. You need to hold on to your food, okay? So again, 3 wood for 1 stone or 3 stone for 1 wood, okay? You can also trade 5 wood or 5 stone for 1 gold. Okay, gold is very valuable, so it takes 5 stone or 5 wood to trade up for 1 gold. Okay, in a pinch, you can use gold as any other resource. So let's say you're short on food, you can turn your gold into 1 food. You can turn your gold into 1 wood or 1 stone as well if you need it to build something. There are no limitations to what you trade with other players as long as it's your turn. Again, only initiate trades on your turn. All right, so that was the resource acquisition phase of your turn. We're talking about how a turn works, and that's step 1. Movement. Each villager, as we talked about, can move 1 tile, and you can only move 3 villagers on your turn. You have to start with villager movement. So let's say I go 1 here, I got another gold deposit, 1 here, another force, and I'm gonna move this guy here, and that's gonna give me my stone. Those military units can also move 1 tile per turn, except the cavalry, remember, which can move 2 tiles per turn. If the cavalry comes into contact with an enemy unit, so a villager or a military unit, that cavalry's movement ends immediately and you have to resolve that conflict, okay? Cavalry units can travel right through an enemy's, farm or barracks or whatever, but again, if it's an enemy unit, you need to have that combat. You can't go through one of those tiles, okay? Villagers cannot go into tiles that have an enemy building in it or are occupied by another enemy's player. So villagers can only go pretty much into blank tiles. So keep that in mind. Villagers aren't trying to initiate conflict or anything like that. We're at the last part of your turn, which is building buildings or units. Okay, remember, 1 building per turn, infinite units per turn, as much as you can afford. Quick note, when you build units, villagers for example, okay, all those villagers are going to be spawned within 1 tile of the city or inside of the city. All those military units need to be spawned on top of the barracks. And that is your turn. So we got our resources, we did our movements, right? And then we built, right? That's how each turn is gonna work. All right, now let's talk about military combat. This is where things can get a little bit tricky, but this is the 7th step in understanding this game. I'm gonna try and make this as simple as possible, okay? When you have a military unit, let's talk about red. Let's use them as an example, all right? There's a couple things red team a red military unit can come in contact with, okay? They can come in contact with another military unit, a villager, a building, or all of the above, okay? You can also take your military unit into an enemy city, and we're gonna talk about that too. But military units, as I said, villagers, and buildings. You want to resolve conflicts in that order. So let's say my soldiers here, okay, it's red team's turn, they got their resources, now they're doing their movement. Don't forget, you want to move your villagers first and then do your military combat. So here I go, I'm going to go in and attack this tile. Now I've got the barracks, I've got an archer, and I've got a villager in there. We want to resolve those conflicts. MVP or MVB, okay, so with the military, right? My soldier, anytime you attack, okay, military versus military, you get +2. That's called initiating combat bonus. So whatever you roll, let me backtrack. Every single unit that you use in combat is worth 1 die roll, okay? So we're gonna roll 1 for red and 1 for blue, okay? Again, initiating combat is +2, so anything I roll for the red team is gonna get +2 added to it. For the defending player, okay, if you are defending in combat, okay, you get +1 defense, and that's a maximum, by the way. The most you can have is +1 defense. And you can earn that by either being on a tile with a villager, okay, being on a tile with a building in it, your own building, so this for example, right, or being inside the city. Soldier gets +2, archer gets +1 just for being on a tile with other things. But remember, if you look at your quick guide, your cheat sheet here, the archer actually gets +2 defense as well. So this is going to be an interesting combat, or a very even one, because soldier gets +2 for initiating, archer gets +1, and 2 more for just being an archer, so +3. So I'm just gonna roll and see what happens. So red team rolls a 6, so that's an 8 now, okay? And blue team rolls a 4, +3 is 7. So the soldier moves in and wins, okay? What's gonna happen is that archer is killed, taken off the board, and then we're going to resolve the conflict with everybody else, okay? For winning combat, right, that soldier gets to pick 1 resource, right, per military unit it defeated from that team. So red team gets to plunder 1 resource. Red team is also going to get 1 gold, okay? Anytime you win military versus military combat, whether on offense or defense, you get a gold. Let's say, for example, though, that blue team rolled a 6, okay? And that'll be 8 versus 9. Blue team wins, okay? So now red team, this soldier gets killed, and then blue team actually won, they get that gold, right, for winning military to military combat, but they also get to plunder 2 resources from red team for each military unit they killed, okay? If you're on defense, you get to plunder 2 resources per unit you defeated instead of 1 like on offense. If blue team had rolled a 5, okay, 6 + 2 is 8, 5 + 3 is 8, okay? In a military versus military fight, ties always go to the initiator, the aggressive player, so they would win. All right, so let's say that's what happened. Now, there's a villager here. Like I said, we need to resolve that next. If the number of invading military units is greater than the number of villagers, that villager is immediately dead. Bam. All right, simple. But if you have 1 invading military unit and 1 villager, if it's the same number, okay, blue team gets to roll a die, okay? A 1 is going to save that villager and send that soldier packing. It's not going to kill him, but it's going to send him back. So if I rolled a 1, villager gets to stay there, and soldier goes back to, and this is going to happen a lot, you'll hear me say this a lot, it's going to go back to the enemy city, any city, or their barracks, okay? Blue team gets to send them back wherever they want to. City or barracks, so I would put them back there. If, however, the military unit moves into a tile with more villagers than there are military units, right? Or this, okay, either way. Okay? A 1 or a 2 is going to save the villagers. Even if there's 3 villagers, right, 2 is the maximum for that. So let's say they roll 2, then both of these guys are going to go back packing. However, let's say blue team rolls a 5, okay? Anything besides a 1 or a 2, that can save them because they have more villagers than invading military units, right? If that's the case, they don't all die. You get to kill 1 villager per military unit invading, so 2 of them would get killed, and then the 1 goes back to the city, all right? Now, if blue team had 2 cities, red team gets to pick where that villager goes. And that's pretty powerful because that villager, when they go back to the home city, remember, they're not going to produce any resources. They're effectively just kind of hunkering down inside that city, kind of like they're being besieged, all right? That is, by the way, one way to win, or one way to conquer another player, is to get all of their villagers inside of a city by attacking, right? If all the villagers are in a city, even if there's 2 cities, right? if their turn or your turn ends like this, okay, that player is done. That's how combat with villagers worked. And then we talked about buildings, all right? Let's say there's nobody protecting this lumber mill, right? And the soldier wants to move in. Pretty smart move, okay? Not only does that lumber mill not make any wood for red team anymore, from now on, okay, that red team is going to gain the benefit of that building. So they're going to gain 1 wood per turn, right? As long as that soldier is sitting there, okay? All right, let's just pretend this is blue team's cattle ranch, all right? If red team moves into that, okay, red team gains 1 food for red villagers adjacent, okay? So they don't get 3 food if it looks like this, right? Because remember, cattle ranch gives you 1 food per your own villager in that town. That's just a quick note about that. Now this also applies to silos and barracks as well, okay? Now, red team can't gain the benefits from barracks, but as long as they're there, okay, blue team can't produce military units, okay? And if they built the silo, as soon as the red unit takes that over, okay, you're back to that 5 food limit. All right, now finally, let's talk about combat versus the city. Let's say inside my home city, I've got a wall and I've got a villager, okay? The home city, I should say, always gets +1 defense, and then you get another defense per villager, and wall you have up to 5, okay? Up to 5 is usually how this works, right? So, +1 for the home city, +1, +1. I've got 3 defense, okay? The way this works is when you go into plunder, right, the home city or any city, right, each military unit that's invading gets to roll a die, all right? Whatever that number is, minus their defense score, which right now is 3, you get to plunder that many resources from that team, okay? As long as you plunder any resources, that's called a successful plunder, which, if you successfully plunder an opponent's home team, they are eliminated from the game. So in a 2-player game, that is the end of the game. So this could be it right here. Let's say the soldier rolls a 2. Okay, I've got, of course, or again, as I said, 1, 2, 3 defense. So that did not work, right? That plundering did not prove successful. So that soldier gets kicked out. Again, back to the barracks or the city of blue team's choice. I'm going to put him way back there. All right. Now it's the archer's turn. Now remember that archer, he has that +wood attack, but that's for military units, so that does not apply here, right? When you're plundering a city, it's just the roll minus their defense score. Now, by the way, can you figure out how much defense the blue team has in that city? Right, we have 1 because it's a home city, +2, or sorry, 1 +1 +1 +1 +1. That's 5. That's the maximum defense for that city, right? So the only thing I can roll here is a 6, right? If I roll a 6, I get to plunder 1 resource from blue team, and since it's the home team again, or the home city again, that is it for the blue team, right? You need to be very careful in the beginning of the game, or as the game progresses, that you're not letting people invade. And if you see this archer's getting closer, you need to start thinking defensively and putting things in there, because if they successfully plunder your home city, that's game over for you. 1 caveat. If blue team has 0 resources, they don't have food, they don't have wood, they don't have stone, and they don't have gold, okay, you cannot plunder them. So you might want to just, if you notice blue team doesn't have anything, you might want to just sit here for 1 turn. Well, actually, you probably want to go here. And just kind of hang out, because even if you invade and you roll a 6, that wouldn't count. That's not a successful plunder. Let's say that red team moves in and wins, okay? They rolled a 6, okay? Blue team is done. We get rid of all their units, we get rid of their city, we get rid of their walls. We're gonna get rid of their barracks for conquering another player, okay? If there's more players, you immediately get 2 gold, which is pretty awesome, okay? You also get all of the resources from red teams. You're gonna take all of their stuff, and then like I said, we clear out all their stuff, but their silo and their cattle ranch remains, as well as their tile upgrade building. We didn't talk about raising a building really quick. Let's say blue team's still in the running, and a red soldier comes into this stonemason, right? They can stay there, but you can also choose to raise it, okay? Raising the building, getting it off the map. You can do that as soon as you move in. You can raise that building, wipe it out, and then blue team will send you back to the barracks or one of your cities, right? Or you can just sit there for a couple turns, and then when you feel like, you know what, I don't really need this anymore, you can choose to raise the building and go back, okay? That is an option. You may do that if you're sitting on an enemy building. Step 8, you want to check for achievements at the end of your turn, or even during your turn, right? You want to start thinking about, did I accomplish any achievements? And they are right here, so let's go over them really quick, right? Number 1, industry. Okay, first player to deploy all 7 workers gets a little token, and they get 1 gold immediately, right? Speed, first the team to deploy a military unit, you get a little token and 1 gold. Strength, first successful offensive or defensive combat between military units, you get another gold and an achievement token. Expansion, if you're the first player to build a second city, you get your token and a gold. Economy,
economy. Okay? If you're the first player to build all 5 tile upgrade buildings, you get a token and 2 gold. And finally, the hardest one to get is development. Okay? If you're the first player to build at least 1 cattle ranch, 1 silo, 1 barracks, and 1 wall, then you get the token and you get 3 gold. So that happens as soon as you achieve those, you get that gold. All right, and step 9, how does the game end? We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to make sure, since this is the most important part of the game, that we understand this. Number 1 is to conquer, right? Be the last team standing. So remember, a successful plunder of another team's home city that knocks them out. So that's one way to win. Or you can also cause all villagers to retreat. We talked about this out as well, but as you attack, you can kill 1 villager per military unit invading. So let's say I went to the forest, and these are blue team's last 2 villagers. They roll a 6, 1 villager gets killed. Remember, the other one retreats back to the city, right? You get to choose which city. If all their villagers are inside cities, they're all retreated, right, hunkered down, that's the end of them as a team. So if you can either plunder their home city successfully, right, or send all their villagers into cities by attacking their villagers, that is how you knock out another player, right? And that's conquer, if you can do that with all the other players and be the last person standing, right? Number 2, we talked about Empire, right? Build 3 cities. First one to build 3, instant game win. El Dorado, end your turn with 10 gold. That's an instant way to win. We have to talk about skirmish, though. We talked about that skirmish. You set a turn limit. Once you hit that turn limit, that last turn, let's say it's 13 turns. You finish 13 turns. Nobody's won by conquering Empire or El Dorado. It's time to count up the scores. Then the scores look like this. So I'll go over this, and then that is the last part of the game. For each military unit, you get 1 point for each tile upgrade building that you control. I'm sure you figured that out. You get 1 point. 1 point for each tile you control via buildings, villagers, or military units, including your city tile. 1 point per gold in your possession. 1 point for each wall and or silo that you have built. 2 points for each cattle ranch and or barracks you have built. 3 points per city that you have. And then 2 points for each achievement token times the gold value of that token. When Dan and I played, we ended up with a score like this. So you can just kind of work your way across, right, and see how you did with the points. Total it up, whoever has the most points wins the game. By the way, when you're getting to the scoring part of a skirmish, if you've got 5 wood or 5 stone sitting around, you can trade those in for a gold to increase your score.
And that's about everything I can possibly tell you about Ancient Empires. If you've made it all the way through this video, first of all, thank you for watching. Second, you're going to be a pro when it comes time to actually play this game with your friends. So good luck. If you want to go back and look through the rulebook real quick just to give yourself a refresher, it's not a bad idea as well. All right. Before you go, as a reward for watching this whole video, I'm going to leave you with 7 tips for beginners. If you take these tips to heart, they're going to help you get that victory. So let me tell you the 7 tips I have for you as you start playing Ancient Empires.